I'm the most devoted and well-behaved girl around. Alan, the young master of a wealthy family. No matter how he hurt me, I never thought of leaving. Until the last time, when he spent a fortune on his Cinderella but was too stingy to lend me $50,000 to save my life. Feeling hopeless, I threw away the ring and walked away. Friends urged him to make me come back. Alan laughed casually. What's the rush? She'll come back obediently by herself in less than a day. On the third day, he finally couldn't resist calling me. When you've had enough fun, come home quickly. But what answered on the phone was a male voice he knew very well. Keep your voice down, Stella was exhausted last night. She's still sleeping, don't wake her. I stood in the lively crowd, staring blankly at the scene in front of me. Alan had his arm around a thin, timid girl. A sophomore named Coco, whose background was even poorer than mine. She was also the girl he was lately doting on. The large private room was filled with managers and PR reps from various luxury brands. Clothes, shoes, bags, and jewelry ranging from hundreds of thousands to millions were being modeled for them one by one. As long as Coco took a second glance, Alan would immediately spend a fortune to buy it. But just half an hour ago, no matter how I begged, Alan wouldn't lend me $50,000. He knew I was already at the end of my rope, even borrowing from loan sharks, yet he didn't soften at all. Suddenly, I woke up. I had always known, deep down, I was just a joke. Even though everyone said I was the girlfriend Alan had dated the longest, and that he treated me differently from other women. Alan, enough, you've bought too much already. Coco's eyes sparkled, pure and happy. Alan leaned down and kissed her cheek. As long as you like it and you're happy. Alan, you're so good, Coco admired and adored him as she looked at him. Such a look undoubtedly greatly pleased the young master. He laughed pleasantly and wrapped his arm around Coco. Let's go, let's find another place to continue the fun. Alan, I couldn't hold back and finally called out to him as I saw him about to leave with Coco. Alan held Coco, and she looked at me curiously. Alan, who is she? I held my breath, my heart hollow, leaving only a thin sliver of hope. Alan flicked his cigarette ash, looked down at me, and pinched Coco's soft face. She's just a piece of trash I can't get rid of, stubborn and annoying, don't mind her. Coco's eyes widened slightly and she pursed her lips. When she looked at me again, her eyes had a hint of disdainful sympathy. I averted my gaze and looked at Alan. I met him at 12. Fell in love with him at 17. Now I was 22, a full 10 years. I thought I'd always like him. But now, it was so easy to let go. I lowered my eyes and stared at the ill-fitting ring on my finger. After a moment, I took it off. Alan frowned slightly. Stella. The moment he said my name, the ring traced an arc in the air and landed in the trash can. I exhaled lightly, looked up at him, and smiled. Alan, I won't bother you anymore. As you wish, let's break up. The room fell dead silent. As I opened the door, I heard a dull thud of something being kicked over behind me. Stella, you know my temper. You'd better think it through. Alan's voice was filled with anger. In the past, I would have been scared into silence, obediently giving in. But now, I didn't even turn back. I've thought it through. Saying that, I opened the door and left the room. The summer night's rainstorm came without warning. Lightning tore through the dark night, thunder rolling. Someone softly reminded, Alan, do you want to go out and take a look? It's going to pour out there. Alan's eyes filled with growing anger. He held Coco close. Don't bother about her. Alan took a wine glass and laughed casually. What's the rush? Just wait and see, she'll come back obediently in less than a day. As soon as he finished speaking, a torrential downpour fell outside the window. It's raining heavily. Stella didn't bring an umbrella, someone mumbled, and Alan looked out the window. He frowned deeply, his thin lips pressed into a line. Alan, you're hurting me, Coco's wary voice sounded. Alan let go and pinched Coco's face again. Let's keep drinking. But in the next moment, he suddenly kicked the coffee table hard, flipping it over. Coco shrank back in fright. Alan. Get out, all of you. Coco cried with grievance but was still pulled out by others. Alan stood up and walked to the window. The rain poured down like a waterfall, blending heaven and earth into one. Nothing could be seen clearly. As soon as I stepped out of the hotel, I got soaked to the skin. Drenched, I didn't bother to hide or run anymore. Just like that, I walked and walked until I suddenly stopped. Then I slowly squatted down and hugged myself, crying silently in the pouring rain. I didn't know how long I cried until the rain above me mysteriously stopped. Only then did I look up, belatedly. Darker than the rainy night's ink was the pair of eyes the man had at this moment. Simon stood beside me, holding an umbrella. The moment I looked over, he bent down slightly. His long fingers grasped my arm and pulled me up. "Simon?" I was a little surprised. My thin dress was soaked and clung to my body. His gaze fell upon me blatantly. I felt a bit scared and tried to pull my hand back to cover myself. My phone in my bag started buzzing again. I knew it was the hospital calling to urge me to pay the bill. My drenched fingers had somehow tightly gripped Simon's sleeve. "Simon, can you lend me 50,000? I looked up at him, desperate and humbled, feeling like I was taking a final gamble. Simon held the umbrella, his gaze slowly falling on my face. But he didn't speak for a long time. The rain pounded on the umbrella. The small world beneath it seemed completely cut off from everything else. As everyone knew, Simon was the eldest son of the Shin family, rebellious and unrestrained. He did things without following the rules. But he was incredibly smart and capable. In this circle, he even slightly overshadowed Alan. Friends around me actually all knew that, although they were polite to each other on the surface, they didn't get along and clearly disliked each other. And I was once Alan's girlfriend. Simon probably hated me too. My fingers curled, wanting to pull back. Simon suddenly let go of my hand. When he reached down again, he clasped my waist through my soaked clothes. Before I could react, I fell into his arms. "Stella, what are you willing to trade?" This was the first thing he said tonight. It was also the first time I heard him call my name. Simon pulled me out of the bathtub. When he handed me a bowl of steaming ginger soup, I was still a bit dazed. From the moment he transferred a 7-figure sum to my account, to getting into his car, to arriving at his villa in the resort area, and now, wearing his bathrobe, sitting across from him and sipping ginger soup. The whole process took roughly 3 hours. I held the bowl, not daring to look at the man in front of me. He was wearing a navy silk robe, revealing a part of his well-toned chest. While I drank the soup, he leaned back in his chair, watching me. His eyes were charming and seductive, combined with his relaxed posture. It made him look like the ultimate heartbreaker. After finishing the soup, I sat stiffly, like a well-behaved student. Simon let out a chuckle. In the next instant, he picked me up in his arms. "How are you so light, don't you eat?" "I eat very little." In his arms, my whole body felt stiff. Alan likes slender girls. For years, I hardly touched rice. I had long forgotten what it felt like to be full. "Stella, you'd look better if you gained a bit more weight." Simon placed me on his large bed, his tall body leaned down, and he kissed me. When the slightly cool kiss landed, I closed my eyes, feeling my ears turn crimson. Simon's eyes held a playful smile as he toyed with my earlobe. "Alan never kissed you? You're so easy to make shy." Alan rarely kissed me. The few times he did, it was just on the forehead or cheek. He didn't like me, so he didn't want to touch me. I kept my eyes closed, my ears and neck burning red. When Simon untied my bathrobe, I trembled and lightly grabbed his fingers. "What's wrong?" He stopped immediately, holding my trembling fingers. "Simon, could you be gentle later? I'm scared." My fingers were shaking badly, and the flush on my face faded, replaced by a pale color. I bit my lip, opened my eyes to glance at him, and then nervously looked away. Simon gently stroked my back. "Don't worry." He laughed softly in my ear, but his kisses became noticeably stronger. I didn't say anything more. I just kept my eyes shut and gritted my teeth to bear it until I couldn't take it anymore. I bit his shoulder, tears welling up in my eyes. Sensing something, he suddenly stopped. "Stella, is this your first time?" I didn't speak, just nodded lightly. Simon's movements unconsciously slowed down. The desire in his eyes softened into tenderness. He cupped my face, wiping away my tears, and sincerely apologized. "Sorry, Stella." He held me close, kissing me softly and tenderly. "Does it hurt?" I nodded again. It really hurt, much more than I had imagined. "My bad." Simon cupped my face, kissing me gently, remorse in his sighs. I didn't respond, just pressed my face against Simon's chest. Tears kept streaming down. When I was 20, Alan got drunk once. A friend called me to pick him up. When I arrived, he was sitting on the couch, his clothes disheveled. One hand holding his phone, constantly unlocking and locking the screen. The air reeked of alcohol and smoke. His eyes were red from drunkenness, his mind hazy. "Stella, come here," he called me softly, for the first time using a tender tone. I walked over to him, and he pulled me close. Taking a ring from his pocket, he said, "Be my girlfriend." Without waiting for my answer, he forcefully put the ring on my finger. The ring was a bit big, not my size. The design was very simple and plain. But I was still overjoyed. On the way back, I kept looking at the ring repeatedly. Maybe I smiled too happily, too blissfully. Alan's mood inexplicably improved. He hugged me and kissed me for the first time. It was the spring of the 8th year since we met. It was the most wonderful spring night of my life. The moment Alan put the ring on me, I quietly swore to myself, "Stella, he's the one for life." Stella. Perhaps I was crying too much. Simon seemed helpless and a bit at a loss. "Please stop crying." He wiped my tears, but they wouldn't stop. "No more." His voice was hoarse, his forehead pressed against mine. In my memory, Simon wasn't this gentle. Many socialites adored him. He seemed affectionate with every one of them, but I'd seen how he dismissed those women in private. Cold, detached, without mercy, but leaving no grounds for blame. As if he did nothing wrong, it was they who shouldn't desire to possess the charming breeze he represented. He was always just a breeze passing through the garden. There were girls who cried even more pitifully than I did. Simon didn't even glance at them. When he walked away, all he said was, "You look quite disheveled with your smeared makeup." But now he was comforting me. I raised my face from his chest, somewhat surprised. "Do I look disheveled when I cry?" Simon raised an eyebrow, then bent down to kiss away my tears. "Stella is so beautiful, it makes my heart ache." His words were effortlessly charming, with a bewitching tenderness. "Why?" I murmured. Simon held my face and laughed softly but didn't answer. "I'll take you for a bath." To my surprise, he moved away. "Warm water will make you feel better." He bent down to pick me up. But I closed my eyes and grabbed his arm. Pulling him back to me, "Simon, I won't go back on my word. After tonight, we'll be even." Simon suddenly stopped. He didn't respond. I was a bit surprised and looked at him. Those eyes that were once filled with tenderness now looked cold. As if he had returned to his former careless self. "Even?" He looked at me, repeating my words. I awkwardly looked away. "The extra money, I returned it to you. I only need 50,000. Simon seemed amused by me, almost laughing. I thought for a moment and then stammered, If you're not happy, I'll pay you back once I save enough." "Stella." Simon grabbed my chin and cut me off. "If you keep talking, I might become the first man to be pissed off to death by a woman." I could smell a faint bitter fragrance on Simon. Its aftertaste was strangely alluring. I could tell he was somewhat angry. But throughout it all, he was still gentle. Later, I couldn't help but think in my daze. He didn't seem like the man I originally thought he was. No wonder, more women liked him than Al and I stayed at Simon's villa for 3 whole days. Several mutual friends from our circle sent me messages. "Stella, where have you been these past few days? Alan is really mad. You should come back soon. Did you block Alan on Instagram and phone? Stella, have you thought about the consequences of doing this? If Alan really gets mad, what are you going to do?" I didn't reply and just tossed my phone aside. After deciding to break up, I stopped considering these issues. Truthfully, my relationship with Alan had been on the rocks for a long time. I was the only one holding it together. On the last night, I just came out of the bathroom when Simon walked in with a bottle of red wine. "Have a drink with me, Stella." He sat down on the couch. For some reason, I felt he looked a bit lonely at that moment. I don't have a good tolerance for alcohol and soon got tipsy. Simon picked me up, and being scared of falling, I quickly wrapped my arms around his neck. "Feels like I've gained some weight indeed. I've been eating indulgently these past few days. My tummy even had a slight bulge. Feels nice to hold." Simon placed me on the bed. The bedroom lights dimmed, and it started raining outside again. 3 days of getting used to each other. The initial awkwardness and discomfort were gone. The rain pattered on until the middle of the night before finally stopping. I was lying on the pillow, my long hair cascading down. Simon leaned back against the headboard, feeding me water. His fingers played with the ends of my hair absent-mindedly. I didn't have the energy to talk. In the end, I fell asleep on his chest. My phone kept vibrating, but I slept deeply, completely unaware. Simon freed one hand to grab my phone. The number wasn't Alan's, but other than him, it wouldn't be anyone else. Simon stared at the digits, and when it rang persistently again, he swiped to answer. "Stella, it's time to come home." Alan's voice had a hint of impatience. Even when lowering himself, he still acted superior. Simon let out a mocking smile. "Keep it down." Simon lightly patted my back. I sleepily opened my eyes and then fell back asleep. "Stella is exhausted and still sleeping. Mr. Alan, keep your voice low so you don't wake her." After he spoke, the other end of the line was dead silent. Simon patiently waited for the other side to speak. About half a minute later. "Simon, why is Stella at your place? You should ask Mr. Alan yourself." Simon looked down at me, sleeping in his arms. "Did you touch her? Simon, did you?" Alan finally broke down, his voice hoarse and trembling. "Stella got caught in the rain and didn't feel well. Mr. Alan, don't think so lowly of me." He finished and hung up, then turned off the phone. Those eyes that always seemed too detached now quietly watched me, for a while. He finally let out a self-deprecating laugh. Just now, he clearly could have harshly slapped Alan with his words. But looking at the serene face in his arms, he mysteriously changed his. Mindy knew nothing about this. The next day, after tidying up, Simon drove me home. As I got out of the car, I softly thanked him. He leaned back in his seat, his shirt collar open, a teasing smile in his eyes. "Stella, you're welcome to come back any time." I lowered my eyes, thinking of the past 3 days of chaos and indulgence. My cheeks were a bit hot. "Goodbye, Mr. Simon." Simon's smile faded a bit. The car window slowly rolled up, and the car started. I stood by the roadside, watching his car disappear. I knew very clearly that there wouldn't be any more entanglements between Simon and me. I went to the hospital to see Linda. She once again miraculously turned the corner, temporarily out of danger. Seeing her in good spirits, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I was only 12 back then. After my mom died, my dad and grandparents pressured me to drop out of school. They thought it was a waste of money to educate a girl. Their plan was to have me work with my aunt and uncle, then, in a few years, marry me off to a family that offered a good dowry. Linda and her mom secretly gave me some money and had a relative send me to a school in a small town overnight. The old principal and teachers at my junior high school protected me. They argued my case and drove my dad and grandfather away, letting me continue my studies. The next year, Alan and his mother came to that town to do charity work. I was the top student, so his mother began to sponsor me. That year, I met Alan for the first time. He was good-looking, exceptional. A bit arrogant, but likable. When his mother took him back to London, he said to me, "See you in London." Those words planted a seed in my heart. Ever since then, I worked tirelessly, never daring to slack off. At 17, I got into one of the best universities in London. At 20, Alan said, "Stella, be my girlfriend." At 21, Linda fell seriously ill. I cried and begged her to come to Beijing for treatment. I took out all my scholarship money and savings. But she was too ill and soon passed away. Unfortunately, soon after her funeral, Linda got sick too, just like Auntie. I couldn't come up with any more money, so I resorted to a high-interest loan. I saved Linda from the brink of death once. But then came the second time, the third time, each more perilous than the last. I had no option but to ask Alan for help. But he didn't lend me a single penny and humiliated me instead. I was nearly on the brink of a breakdown. "You have no obligation to lend me money, but we've known each other for years. At the very least, you could have asked why I needed it so desperately, or at least not humiliated me." All I got was his mocking reply. "Can't stand the humiliation? Then leave, no one's stopping you." But at that time, I was so powerless. Even I was stuck in a tough spot. When I left the hospital, I made up my mind. I decided to give up on my grad school plans and find a decent paying job. On my way back, my phone suddenly buzzed a few times. I checked my phone. It was a mutual friend from our circle. He'd sent me 10 transfer notifications. Seeing all those zeros, I knew it was from Alan. But I felt nothing inside. If that night, I had asked Alan for $50,000. And he didn't refuse, then threw money carelessly for cocoa. Maybe I wouldn't have had the resolve to break up with him. A padded coat in the summer, a fan in the winter, too late to be of any use. I didn't open the messages. A few minutes later, my friend called. I thought about it and decided to answer. "Stella." Alan's voice was deep and hoarse. "Just 3 days." It felt like he went from being my boyfriend to a stranger. "What's up? Where are you now?" "Heading home." On the other end, Alan seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. "I'll wait for you at home," he said, then hung up. That home, I guess, was the last bit of generosity Alan had for me. After graduation, I moved into this apartment to prepare for grad school. The apartment belonged to Alan. But some things inside were mine. Since we broke up, I figured I should pack up my stuff. When I opened the door, I was momentarily stunned. The air inside was terrible. Filled with the sharp smell of smoke and alcohol. Alan was sitting on the couch, his shirt all wrinkled. His hair was messy, clearly unkempt. I changed into my house slippers and walked in. "Stella." Alan stood up, walking toward me. He reached out, trying to hug me. I dodged. "Alan, we already broke up," I said calmly while looking at him. He probably hadn't slept much these past few days. Dark circles under his eyes, face looking haggard. His shirt, that was the same one from 3 days ago. That shocked me. Alan was always such a clean freak. "Stella, you're still mad." I shook my head. "I was just messing around with them." "You knew that." Alan reached out, wanting to pull me close. I avoided him again. "Alan, what you do with others, I don't care, but this time, I'm not joking with you." I looked at him, the person I secretly loved in my youth. Someone I'd imagined spending a lifetime with. But that's it. We're strangers now. Truthfully, it hurts inside. But after all these years, I always knew this was how it'd end. My heart felt oddly calm and relieved. "So, you don't have to explain anything to me." I said, walking past him to my room. Stella. I stopped but didn't turn around. You know Simon and I don't get along. Are you mad at me, trying to get back at me by doing this? Alan walked over, gripping my shoulders. Stella, no one knows how much you love me better than I do. He was so certain. Even when trying to win me back, he was domineering. But I became even more clear-headed. What's more laughable than someone you love knowing full well how much you love them, yet disrespecting and hurting you without a care? I pushed his hands away. This has nothing to do with Simon. Alan, I am breaking up with you. I turned to face him, speaking seriously. It's me, I just don't like you anymore. After I packed my things and left that day, Alan never reached out to me again. He was a pampered young master. And I was just an orphan girl who had benefited from his mom. I started sending out resumes, looking for a job. With my degree, I quickly got an interview call. The day of the interview, I saw Simon on the large LED screen downstairs. Wearing a black business suit, surrounded by high-ranking executives and secretaries. He looked quite serious and stern, not smiling at all. It almost felt like another world. As if the man who had been with me in that mountain villa for days during a rainy night was just a dream. But I quickly snapped back to reality. Our past, Simon and I, had silently moved on. I needed money to save lives. He probably did it because I was his enemy's ex. For him, it was a thrill, a curiosity. I rented a new place, close to the office but small and old. On the weekend, I found time to visit Linda in the hospital. She was recovering well this time. When I saw her, she had teary eyes and said her little sister was getting married. Just 18, about to marry the butcher next door. I held Linda's hand tightly. Tell her to run, come here. She can find some job, she'll survive. Linda shook her head with tears. We both knew how tough it really was. The endless mountains were shackles around their necks. How lucky you'd need to be to escape like I did. Leaving the hospital, I got a call from the company HR. She apologized, informing me they ultimately didn't hire me. I asked why, but suddenly it became clear. It was Alan, wasn't it? After hanging up the phone, a message came through. Stella, I'll get you back by my side. I stood by the roadside, in the middle of a scorching summer. But I felt ice cold all over, my fingers trembling. I looked dazedly at the dappled shade and sunlight above. So, this is the man I loved for 5 years. When I got accepted to a university in London and was mocked for being poor and ignorant, it was the cold-faced Alan who stood up for me. The same Alan who stayed by my bedside all night when I was sick, clumsily making soup for me. The Alan who had scolded and humiliated me, but held me drunk, begging for forgiveness. So many memories, so many versions of him, overlapping but becoming fuzzy and distorted. Turns out everyone, when young, falls for a perfect image they've imagined. The Alan I've loved all these years was nothing but a version I've repeatedly idealized and lied to myself about. I deleted all contacts of mutual friends within Alan's circle. I faced constant setbacks while job hunting. Eventually, I joined the neighbors selling goods under the bridge. After all, I needed some income to get by. And then there was Linda. My mind was always uneasy since she hadn't fully recovered. More pressing was the high-interest loan I had taken out. I was increasingly strapped for cash, struggling even to pay the hefty interest. Thankfully, selling stuff brought in daily income. I almost starved myself, living frugally, and managed to save nearly $1,000 in a week. One day, my phone rang. Another unknown number. I knew it was Alan calling. I answered directly. Stella, I'm at the hospital now. I stood up instantly. Alan? Your sister's name is Linda, right? What do you want? Alan, if you have something to say, come to me. I asked the doctor. Her condition can relapse at any time, it's very dangerous. Alan's voice had that condescending surety. Stella, if you come back, I'll immediately get the best doctor in London for her. What if I don't come back? Stella, you know my nature. I've always gotten whatever I wanted by any means necessary. But I'm a person, a living, breathing human with my own thoughts, my own dignity. Stella, I was wrong before. I'll change. I knew these words meant a lot for Alan. It was his way of submitting. But I'm no longer the Stella who could be sweet-talked back in just a few words too late, Alan. No, it's not. I know, nothing happened between you and Simon. Stella, let's make up, let's forget everything from before. I won't bring it up again. Did Simon tell you that? I was a bit surprised. They were arch-enemies, and I originally thought he wouldn't miss any chance to humiliate Alan. Yes. He lied to you, Alan. That night, for 50,000, I sold myself to him. I spoke lightly, even chuckling towards the end. So, you see, there's no way for us. The line went dead silent. I stared at the shimmering river in the distance, reopening what appeared to be a healing wound forcefully. Stella, you're lying. You love me. You wouldn't do that. Alan, nothing is impossible. I admit, I really loved you all those years. But later, when I left with Simon, I realized I was completely over you. Stella. Alan, let's part on good terms. Also, don't threaten me with the people I care about. Don't make me hate you for life. After saying this, I hung up. Alan quickly called back, and I blocked the number. Deep that night, a friend called me after multiple attempts. Stella, please, come see Alan. He drank a lot, and now he's got a stomach bleed. He's in the hospital. Alan's been calling your name. Stella, can you two sit down and talk things out? These days, there haven't been any random girls around Alan. He's cut ties with all of them. And the ring you threw away, Alan found it too. Stella, Alan refuses to get in for treatment, insisting on leaving the hospital. We really have no other options. I interrupted. Call his parents. This isn't a small matter. Stella, are you really done with him? I'm done. I was about to hang up. The friend stopped me again. Stella, we never thought it'd come to this. Alan really regrets this time. Then his future girlfriend or wife should be very happy. I didn't say anything more, hung up the phone, thinking it might be time to get a new phone number. After changing my number, I got a call from Simon almost a month later. Hearing his voice again, I was a bit dazed. Stella. Simon hissed, shouldn't you come to the hospital to see me? Are you sick? Got into a fight. A fight? Did someone beat you up? To be precise, someone came looking to beat me up. Was it Alan? Uh-huh. I understood, and felt guilty. Simon had covered up the 3 days for me. Yet, I laid the truth out to Alan. Such a proud young man like him couldn't take it. I went to the hospital. At the front gate, I bit the bullet and bought a bouquet and a fruit basket, the cheapest kind. Simon was indeed hurt, with a cut and a bruise at the corner of his eye. But even dressed in striped hospital pajamas, with his injuries on display, he still looked somewhat carefree and rebellious. Seeing me come in, he raised an eyebrow slightly, and the nurse and assistant in the room stepped out. I felt a bit embarrassed, but I still handed him the stuff I bought. Simon, these things are cheap, but it's a small gesture from me, don't mind it. Simon glanced at the roughly packaged flowers and the slightly wilted fruits in the basket. He didn't seem to mind at all. Peel me an apple. I washed the fruits and sat by his bed to start peeling an apple. But before I could finish, the door of the ward was suddenly kicked open from the outside. I was startled, my hand shook, and the knife cut my fingertip. Simon shot up, grabbed my bleeding hand, and lowered his head to suck on the cut. Instinctively, I tried to pull my hand back, but Simon gripped it tighter. Standing there was Alan, his clothes disheveled, with several bruises on his face and one arm in a sling. His eyes were bloodshot, he looked utterly defeated and broken. Stella. His voice was hoarse as he called my name. With some difficulty, he took a jewelry box out of his pocket. It's that pink heart-shaped diamond you always liked, Stella. I flew abroad to get it for you myself. Come here, put on the ring, and we'll get our marriage license tomorrow. I finally turned to look at him. Alan's tired, dim eyes brightened instantly. Stella, come over, won't you? He reached out to me. Alan, I liked pink diamonds when I was 20. Now, I no longer like diamonds. Stella, I'm sorry, I really didn't know, you never told me. He looked a bit helpless and remorseful, sheepishly retracting his hand. What's the use of saying it now? He never cared about my joys and sorrows. Leave, Alan. Don't cling to me anymore. Who would have thought one day Stella would say this to Alan? His face darkened gradually. Is it because of Simon? What did he give you? Money or jewelry? Do you think he really likes you, sincerely? If you weren't my girlfriend, would he even look at you? A guy like him, what woman can't he find? Why would he be good to a woman bored with others? I stood up and, with all my strength, slapped him. Alan, don't make me regret and deeply hate that I ever truly liked you. Where did I go wrong? Alan raised his hand to touch his face but looked past me. At Simon she had a secret crush on me at 17, followed me at 18. It's been 5 years now, despite all the women I've been with, she never left. So Simon, do you think she would like you? She's just using you to annoy me. Believe it or not, Stella will come back to me eventually. And you will be dumped by her. The more he spoke, the more fervent he became, as if convinced that it would make it true. Trying to persuade Simon to abandon me, exposing my vulnerabilities. I really didn't want to listen to it anymore. Turning away, I walked over to Simon's bed. Simon still maintained his casual, unflustered demeanor. Stella, will you dump me? I did not answer. I just bent down and kissed his slightly dry lips directly. I don't know when Alan left. I also don't know what expression Simon had at that moment when I kissed him. But Simon clearly enjoyed it even though my kiss was still amateurish, he found it very satisfying. Yet, after doing such a thing impulsively, I felt a bit at a loss. Sorry. After all, just now, I somewhat took advantage of him. Just sorry, no responsibility? Responsibility? I was a bit stunned, looking at Simon. He looked at me, still with that roguish charm, but fearlessly honest. Yes, first kiss, first time, you've taken them all, don't you have to take responsibility? I was completely bewildered. First kiss? First time? Was he fooling a 3-year-old? Who didn't know Simon was a famous playboy? Women chasing him could line up from London to New York. Even though he was a year younger than Alan, he was already 26 this year. I couldn't believe it even if you killed me. Yes, first kiss, first time. Simon was serious for the first time. When he got serious, he actually had a very bright and clear presence. It's just that these amorous eyes seemed too flirtatious. So, he didn't look like a good Monty was really confused inside. In the end, I didn't know what to say. I turned and fled. I didn't answer Simon's calls. I thought my relationship with Simon had ended long ago. We were done for good. But now, everything seemed tangled and chaotic. I lay in my small rented room for 2 days. During this period, Simon called me a few more times. I didn't answer. He also sent me texts and photos. Stella, I got disfigured. His facial wound showed signs of inflammation, and half of his face was slightly swollen. In the photo, Simon looked pitiful and aggrieved, no trace of his former dashing demeanor. I replied, follow the doctor's orders and rest well. What if I really get disfigured? Simon replied quickly. With a ruined face, no more innocence, how will I ever get a wife in the future? Looking at this message, for some reason, I couldn't help but curl my lips and laugh out loud. I held the phone to my chest, not replying anymore. The current Stella seemed completely incapable of trusting anyone, trusting that she would receive special treatment. Trusting that she'd be lucky enough to live a happy life again, just like she miraculously escaped from the remote village 10 years ago. Moreover, it's Simon we're talking about here. I didn't have the confidence to believe I was the girl who could make him settle down. Besides, our beginning wasn't pure. Linda called, inviting me for a meal. She was the benefactor I met in my youth. Also, the kindest and most loving lady I had ever met in my life. Back when Alan asked me to be his girlfriend, I worried about Linda's opinion. After all, my background was embarrassingly humble. But when Linda found out, she was surprisingly happy. She said to me, "Stella, I've always been worried about Alan. He's too immature, too playful, and stubborn. You're a good kid, with a beautiful heart and a lovely face. I feel at ease leaving Alan in your care." But in the end, we still went our separate ways no matter what happened between Alan and me. I'll always remember his mother's kindness. When I got to the restaurant room, I pushed the door open and saw Alan sitting next to his mother. I stopped in my tracks. But Alan's mother got up and warmly grabbed my hand. "Stella, come on in." I could only follow her inside. Alan's mother seemed to be in an especially good mood. She pulled me to sit next to Alan. "Stella, Alan told me you're planning to get married? Such a big event, why keep it a secret from me?" she said cheerfully, taking off her jade bracelet to put it on me. I quickly raised my hand to stop her. "Auntie, you misunderstood. Mom, Stella and I had a bit of a fight." "She's still angry at me," Alan cut in. His mother immediately glared at him. "It must be your fault. Stella's the sweetest and most obedient girl I know." "It was my fault. I know that now, but Stella won't forgive me." Alan's eyes were a little red. He looked at me pitifully. "Stella, I truly know my mistake now, give me another chance, please." Alan's mother quickly chimed in, "Stella, I'll definitely teach Alan a lesson when we get back. And if he ever dares to bully you again, just tell me. I'll make sure he gets punished. This time, please, for my sake, forgive him, alright?" I gently pulled my hand away. Over the years, I could feel it. Auntie truly cared for me and liked me a lot. She genuinely wanted me to be her daughter-in-law. But unfortunately, I still had to disappoint her. "Auntie, Alan and I have already broken up. Stella, we're not getting back together." "Auntie, I'm really sorry." Alan's mother's eyes instantly turned red. "Stella, what happened between you two? How did it come to this?" I didn't answer. Things change, nothing ever stays the same. My only mistake was naively thinking Alan liked me. But until the moment we broke up, I didn't realize it. That ill-fitting ring had actually warned me already. Alan wanted me as a friend. Maybe it was just a whim, maybe it was a game the ring's true owner wasn't me. I was just lying to myself, refusing to believe it. Seeing Alan's mother like this made me feel terrible. "Auntie, I can't stay for dinner. Maybe another day, I'll treat you." I said goodbye. Alan's mother urged Alan to send me off. "No need, Auntie." I declined her, grabbed my bag, and left. As I walked out, I heard Alan's mother scolding him tearfully. But it had nothing to do with me anymore. Just as I almost reached the elevator, Simon popped up out of nowhere. This guy still had injuries on his face and was wearing a hat. He was dressed casually today, with a t-shirt and sweatpants, looking like a fresh college student. But his smile still looked cunning and roguish. He pulled me into the room beside the elevator just as Alan came running out from the dining room. "Stella!" He shouted my name. Simon locked the door with a click just as Alan was nearing. The room was dark. As Simon leaned down, his hat brim brushed against my hair. "Stella, if Alan can't find you today, come with me, okay? How's your injury?" I changed the subject. Simon took off his hat and moved closer for me to see his wounds. I almost got disfigured. "But it looks fine now." I raised my hand and touched the hard scab of the wound. "Stella, it itches," Simon whispered softly in my ear. "The doctor told me not to scratch it. I can't sleep because it itches so much." He gave me a pitiful look. "I've never been hit before. The wound is healing, so it's going to itch." You have to endure it, or it'll leave a scar if you scratch it. I soothed him softly. Can you scratch it for me? Just as he finished speaking, footsteps sounded in the hallway. Then Alan's voice called out my name again. Stella, don't hide from me, okay? I know you haven't left, you're still here. Alan started knocking on doors one by one. The waiter was trying to persuade him quietly. But knowing Alan's temper, no waiter could stop him. He would soon be at this door. My body started to tense up. Simon moved closer. Stella, kiss me. I looked at the scar on the corner of his eye. In the end, I softened. I tiptoed and gently kissed that scar. Simon grabbed my waist and lifted me onto the table beside us. As he lowered his head to kiss me, Alan was banging on the door. Stella. I stiffened, trying to push Simon away. But his kiss grew heavier and deeper. Stella, he can't get in. That day was a total mess. Alan knocked on every door on that floor. But it happened to be the room Simon and I were in. In the end, he couldn't get in. Just when he was about to go crazy and smash the door, Alan's mother forcibly dragged him away. When I was being overwhelmed by Simon, Alan's voice calling my name was already hoarse and frantic. He probably heard sounds inside. Because in the heat of the moment, I couldn't help but cry out. When I did, Alan's voice outside the door paused for a moment. Then the sound of him kicking the door grew louder and harder. I was so nervous my whole body tensed up. Simon finally lost control too. Stella. He kissed me over and over. Outside, things finally quieted down for a long time. Simon squatted on the floor, carefully smoothing out every wrinkle of my dress. As I gradually calmed down, the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I wouldn't respond to anything Simon said to me. When we were about to leave, Simon leaned against the door, holding my wrist. Stella. When serious, he's nothing like the rumors about him being a playboy. I almost felt like he truly liked me. Let's be together. In the end, I didn't agree with him. Just like Alan had said before. Why would Simon like me? If not for the fact that I was Alan's girlfriend once. Would he have stepped out of his fancy car with an umbrella for me on that rainy night? I'm not trying to think the worst of everyone. But years of hardships have reminded me. So, I keep telling myself. Don't repeat past mistakes. Men from their circle aren't a good match for me. On the way back, Simon was driving me home. We didn't say a word to each other. Until the car stopped, and I got off. Stella, Simon called out to me. I wasn't kidding about that. Think about it more seriously, okay? I didn't respond or look back. Even as I walked deep into the alley, Simon's car lights stayed lit. Later, someone told me. On that night in that shabby rental area, where cars couldn't enter the alley, a luxury car worth millions was parked there. All night long, it never left. Linda's condition gradually improved. When I went to see her again, her eyes were red and swollen from crying. My sister doesn't want to get married. She ran away but was caught. My grandpa beat her nearly to the point of breaking her legs. Linda clutched my hand, crying uncontrollably. Later, my uncle heard about it and rushed over overnight. Only then, my sister was taken to the hospital in town. Linda, uncle said, my sister is determined to end her life. Listening to Linda, I couldn't help but think. If Linda and Aunt hadn't sent me away that night, I'd probably face the same tragic end. Stella, I'll find a way. I'll get my sister out of there. If she dies, it's over. But alive, there's still hope. But Stella, do you really have a plan? You barely escaped from there. Let's try, we have to try. I borrowed another $10,000 at a higher interest rate. Then I went back to my hometown with the money. I deliberately wore my best and most expensive clothes. I rented an expensive car for the visit. I approached my sister's father and grandfather. I gave them $3,000. Let Jenny come with me to London. I promise she'll make at least $20,000 in a year working with me. And a year from now, she'll still be just 19. It won't delay her marriage. $3,000 was almost a year's income for Jenny's dad. They were tempted right away. $3,000 is just an advance. A year later, Jenny will bring back another $17,000. How about it? I really need help over there, and we need to leave tomorrow. You guarantee she'll make $20,000 in a year? If she doesn't, I'll make up the difference. I acted all high and mighty. Such a good opportunity isn't available to just anyone. If it wasn't for Linda, you wouldn't get this. All right, let her go with you for a year. Things went smoother than I expected. When I went to the town hospital to get Jenny the next day, there was a hiccup. My biological father, who had been working out of town, somehow heard I was back. He rented a car overnight and came to the village. When I was taking Jenny out of the hospital, he and some family members blocked us. I already took the dowry. My biological father looked at me like a starving wolf eyeing a piece of meat. Stella, I gave birth to you. You must listen to me. Now come with me to get married. I didn't want to argue, so I took out my phone to call the police. But he was faster, slapping the phone out of my hand. To be honest, calling the cops won't help. If I sell my daughter into marriage, there's nothing they can do. You've been away for years. Finally, you can make me some money. He grabbed my arm, pushing me toward the van. Don't think about running. I took the money, I won't give it back. How much did you get? I'll pay you double. I tried to calm him down. But he grinned coldly and slapped me hard. Don't play games with me. I've been through more than you. I refused to get in the van, so he slapped me again. My grandpa and uncles also rushed in. Jenny stood aside, crying and begging for help. But everyone there just stood there, numb and unmoved. That's how it is there, daughters' lives aren't valued. Daughters are made to marry, and a high dowry is a blessing. I was pushed into the van. Just as the door was about to close, there was a screech of brakes. Simon's black Hummer blocked the van. Before anyone could react, he kicked my father away and pulled me out. Simon. My legs were so weak I could barely stand. Don't be afraid. It's okay. I'm here, Stella. Simon hugged me tight and kissed me hard. He held my face, fingers brushing against the slap marks, and his expression changed. Wait in the car for me. He pushed me into the car and locked it. I sensed what was coming, pounded on the window, shouting his name. Simon just glanced back at me. The scar at the corner of his eye was still there, and when he smiled, he looked both scummy and wicked. Suddenly, tears welled up in my eyes. In that backward and despicable village, many people were ignorant. They didn't know what the law was or where the limits were. Some worldly people, seeing Simon's demeanor in the car he drove, knew he was either rich or noble and shouldn't be provoked. But clearly, my heartless family didn't think about those things. All they knew was that Simon ruined their plans and cut off their financial lifeline. That was akin to a death sentence for them. A bunch of them rushed in and started beating him up. At first, Simon could hold his own. But he couldn't withstand more and more people from the clan joining in. His head was smashed, blood covered his face. Someone grabbed a wooden stick and hit his leg. He bit his teeth against the pain, sweat beading on his forehead, yet he didn't utter a sound. I desperately pounded on the car window, crying and calling out his name. Simon was beaten until he could no longer fight back. In the end, he was left lying helplessly on the ground. But luckily, his assistant and the city police finally arrived. Simon was carried to the car and taken to the nearest hospital immediately. I stayed outside the operating room, tears spilling over like a flood. The last look Simon gave me, the last smile he flashed me. I couldn't get it out of my head. At this moment, I had no other thoughts. I just wanted him to be safe, to wake up soon. When I was allowed to visit him in the hospital room, it was already night. The doctor said Simon was in good health, so although his injuries seemed severe, they weren't too serious. But seeing the bandage on his head, with blood almost soaking through it, I couldn't hold back my tears. Simon lay there, looking very weak. Stella, he tried to reach out to me. I was afraid he would touch the 4-needle, so I hurried over and held his hand. Do I look ugly? Tears brimming in my eyes, I smiled, but the tears fell even harder. Are you stupid? I choked up. Why didn't you come with the police? Couldn't wait, I was afraid if I delayed, you'd suffer more. He looked at my face, still slightly marked from the slaps. Does it hurt? Not anymore. I couldn't help scolding him. You are the one who got hurt, Simon, you idiot. That's it, Stella. What? He almost scared me to death. Simon lay there with no hope. Now I'm ugly, stupid, and lost my dignity. I guess I'm doomed to a life of being single. What nonsense. Half angry, half amused. Your hair was only cut because of the injury. When it grows back, you'll still be very handsome. But you called me stupid twice. What if I really end up with some after effects, really become dumb? I stared at him for a long moment. Smiling through tears, I said, then I'll just have to marry you. When Simon took me back to London, Jenny came with us. Along with her, several other girls who were sold by their families were also rescued. Some returned to school, others planned to find jobs and leave that place forever. Simon set up a foundation in my name. It was dedicated to helping out-of-school girls and orphan children abandoned by their parents in my hometown. I was so grateful inside, saying thank you countless times. For myself and for the millions of girls who saw hope. Back in London, Simon was ordered by his family to rest and recover properly. I was also swamped with the foundation's affairs. Until the loan sharks came knocking because I hadn't paid the interest in time. Simon got mad at me for the first time. He paid off all my debts. After those people left, Simon glared at me. Stella, get in here. I followed him into the room and quickly admitted my mistake before he could speak. I had no choice. I had just graduated and was preparing for postgraduate exams. Linda was very sick, so I borrowed money. The second time was because of Alan. I couldn't find a job. As I spoke, I couldn't help the tears that welled up. Like a kid, I sat before Simon, crying and apologizing. Originally, Simon had planned to give me a good scolding. Borrowing from loan sharks should never happen, let alone twice. But seeing me cry, his heart softened completely, not even a harsh word came out. He handed me all his cards. From now on, with me around, this won't happen again. Simon wiped away my tears, regretting being so harsh earlier. From now on, no matter what, Stella, you have to think of me first. But I still wanted to rely on myself more. Simon, I am Stella first, then your girlfriend. I know. I just want to tell you, don't shoulder it alone when you can't handle it. I'm here. Okay. Before Simon and I got engaged. At a friend's gathering, I ran into Alan. Of course, he had heard about my engagement to Simon. With many people around, he openly congratulated me. I smiled and thanked him. Some busybody took a photo of us smiling at each other and posted it on Twitter. Simon saw it somehow. He was fiercely jealous all night. Stella, do they think I'm dead? He stayed up all night, posted on Twitter, secret crush success, lifelong happiness. The picture was of my 18-year-old self, looking very young and innocent. Alan was in the photo too, standing beside me, looking handsome but impatient. Simon had put thick mosaics over him. And in the upper left corner of the photo, there was a guy in sportswear, with flirtatious eyes smiling radiantly. It was Simon in his youth. He circled himself out with a red circle after posting on Twitter. Both Simon's and my phones blew up. I couldn't care less, grabbed him, and pressed him. You have a crush on me? Simon, you secretly have a crush on me? Since when? You're good at hiding it. If you hadn't blown up in jealousy tonight, I would never have known. Yeah, I do have a crush on you. No, actually, it's not a crush, it's an open love. Simon awkwardly touched his nose. I confessed directly to you at the time. Simon looked at me, his eyes full of loving helplessness. but you got scared and ran away. Since then, you've been avoiding me. I gradually started to recall those distant memories. When I first went to college, I was very insecure and timid. Especially since my heart was secretly pining for Alan, I didn't pay attention to any other guys. I had long forgotten all about these things. Later, your roommate told me that you hated me. Simon snorted softly. The exact words were, his smile is sly and bad. He doesn't look like a good person's definitely playing with me. I felt a sour feeling inside, something I couldn't describe. Maybe back then, I just casually said that to my roommate. But Simon, he remembered all these years. Sorry, Simon. I tugged on his sleeve, apologizing softly. Just a sorry? He raised an eyebrow at me. I laughed and pounced on him, hugging his neck tightly. Then I'll take responsibility, for a lifetime. Is that enough? Simon lowered his head, kissing me gently. Then don't smile at any other man like that again. It makes me jealous. Okay, from now on, I'll only smile at you. Stella, I love you. I know. Tilting my face up, I returned his kiss. I love you too, Simon. The second year of our marriage, I gave birth to a beautiful daughter. That same year, Alan had an accident abroad and injured his left arm, staying in the hospital for a long time. Later on, he married the nurse who took care of him and had another wedding. When they returned home, a friend secretly told me that the bride bore a slight resemblance to me. Alan's mother didn't quite like the girl but couldn't stop Alan from insisting on marrying her. I just smiled and played with my baby girl lovingly. That evening, when Simon came back from work, he was a bit different from usual. We originally put our daughter to bed together. But that night, he had the nanny take her to the nursery. After a year of dating and 2 years of marriage, we had already slept together countless times. But it had never been like that night. He was forceful, urgent. He kept making me say I love you over and over again. In the end, I couldn't take it anymore and pinched him hard. Simon held me in his arms, looking more pitiful than I felt. What's gotten into you? Stella, you're mine. Of course, I'm yours. I hate it when others covet you. That's when I understood, he was probably jealous because Alan married a woman who resembled me. Covet but never get, shouldn't you feel a bit smug? No, even the thought of that gum annoys me. This man, after 2 years of marriage, was getting more and more childish. It was both amusing and exasperating. I could only soothe him patiently. The next day, Simon suddenly suggested we take our daughter out to play. As expected, we bumped into Alan and his new wife. Alan introduced his wife to us. I looked at the girl. She did have a slight resemblance to me. Simon held me and smiled at Alan's wife. This is my wife, Stella. Then, he took our swaddled daughter, almost flaunting to Alan. This is our daughter. Isn't she beautiful? Doesn't she look exactly like Stella? He generously let Alan hold our daughter. By the end, Alan couldn't keep up his smile and left in a hurry with his wife. Only then did Simon feel satisfied. Not long after, Alan moved abroad with his wife. 3 more years passed. Alan and his wife divorced. Word was, she took a substantial sum of his money. One night, I drowsily answered a long-distance call. The person on the other end said just one thing, Stella, I'm sorry. When Alan divorced, a former friend asked me out for tea. He told me Alan spent the night before his wedding drinking and confessing to him. Alan said, when he learned I had a crush on him back then. His first thought was that I was after his money and background. So he humiliated me, made things hard for me, was generous to everyone else but harsh on me. He wanted to see if I, unable to gain any benefit from him, would give up and show my true colors. But no matter what he did or how he treated me, I remained consistently good to him, never leaving. That ring was indeed meant for another girl. But the girl refused him, telling him, Alan, I can't accept you having a girl like Stella around. Actually, you like her, not me. Stop fooling yourself. He was furious at having his heart laid bare. So he deliberately gave the ring to me, making me his girlfriend. His plan was to publicly expose me after I accepted the ring, to humiliate me. But I was so happy and blissful at the time, he softened. So we started dating. He couldn't control his feelings for me but couldn't accept that he liked me. So, he kept humiliating me, constantly cheating with other girls. Yet, when drunk, he'd beg for my forgiveness. Until the last straw, when I asked him for money. It seemed to confirm his initial suspicion that I was with him for his money. He hated me, refused without hesitation, and even staged that humiliating scene for me. Perhaps Alan never thought. Just for a mere 50,000, he lost the foolish, wholeheartedly loving girl forever. By the time he learned the real reason I needed the money, he panicked and messed everything up even further, with no chance of turning back. The friend mentioned Alan's current situation once more. I smiled and interrupted him. Sorry, I need to go home now. My husband and daughter are here to pick me up. Outside the window, Simon, holding our daughter, was stepping out of the car. Seeing me, he immediately smiled. This man, his smile is both bad and lovable. The sun was shining brightly, it was a perfect spring day. I waved at them, got up, and walked outside. Those icy burdens of my youth melted away upon meeting Simon. From then on, my life had no more storms, only sunshine.